Hi, I'm Dan. This is Vinyl Fury, and another entry in what I'm calling my vinyl diary, where I'm just going to be showing records that I've been listening to lately, whether they are new to the collection from the inbox or they're from the collection that I've had for years. So let's talk about some rock records, starting with Deftones, self-titled, 2003, which means it is 20 years old. Holy shit. There is a reissue of this, I think, coming out next month. It's on like a kind of bloody red vinyl. I'm going to try not to get that. This is an original pressing, and if you might be able to tell, it is signed by all 5 members of the band at the time, which was 2011. So Chi was obviously the bass player. The original bass player was still in the hospital, and new bass player Sergio was with them. He actually is no longer their bass player, which kind of sucks. I think he was great. But yeah, they were doing a record store signing on Record Store Day, which happened to be where I live in Portland, and I stood in line, and they signed, I think, 3 record jackets for me, including this one. The original pressing, it's 2003, so vinyl is kind of an afterthought, really. So it's okay. It's good. A reissue that I've had from, I think, 2010, 11 was maybe marginally better, but I sold that some time ago. Along with the next record, Saturday Night Wrist, it's kind of an oddity in their discography, I think. They had risen from their debut and their 3rd record, White Pony, in 2000 really shot them up further. This comes after that. They rode that wave for a couple years. Found it really difficult to make this record musically, and then all of them in their personal lives were having a tough time. So they look back on this as kind of a dark period, and it's a dark album. A lot of it is more detuned than previous records, and they've actually gone further. But then you get songs like Needles and Pins, which is one of my favorite Deftones songs. You got a heavy drum groove and then just this thick sludge of a guitar riff that's just huge. And that's kind of the vibe of the record. I love it, though. I love the cover. If I ever got a music-related tattoo, that might be it. But yeah, 20 years, so I figured I'd give it a spin. I still really enjoy it. The second EP from Fugazi, Margin Walker. On Discord, there's a reissue from 2009. All of my Fugazi albums are from that reissue campaign, which is great because they were all really inexpensive and really well done. Burning 2 and Promises are, I think, classic Fugazi songs. And, I've only been into Fugazi for the last 10 years or so. Don't know why it took me so long to figure out how amazing they were. And this doesn't sound like 1988 to me. It sounds more modern. It sounds like the music that was inspired by them to me, which is a bit of an odd perspective, but it kind of makes this kind of timeless to me. Definitely not a late 80s sound in my head, which I guess also applies to Bleach from Nirvana, their first album from, 89? A lot of songs on here, to me, like when I listen to this record, I'm like, oh yeah, that was this album. An album that I don't listen to as much, maybe, as the others, but songs that are just as classic in my head as some of the ones from Nevermind and In Utero. I mean, what else do you say about this seminal album in alternative rock music? Like, things got different after this, and then certainly after Nevermind. Cave In, I love Cave In. This is Tides of Tomorrow, an EP that's right between Jupiter, which is their shift from like metal, heavy guitars, screaming vocals. That was their beginning. Jupiter is this expansion into space rock and singing, great melodic, heavy music. And then comes this, and then after this is Anchor, which is their major label debut on RCA, which was like a much more not standard, but closer to standard rock album, which was fantastic, but it was quite different than what they had done before. And this is kind of in between those. And it has some great songs to me that I love listening to. This is probably one of the most listened to records of mine, vinyl records. And if Fred is watching this, yeah, vinyl records. I'm being specific sometimes. Because to me, yeah, this is a record, but kind of and I think a lot of people think this way, like an album is a record. That's the record. There's the single, there's a song, and then there's the record that it's from, which obviously comes from this record format, but I don't think there's a problem in being specific about vinyl records, but I do understand the annoyance at using that term for bait, I guess. Anyway, I just happened to catch his latest video, Big Star 1000. If you don't know Fred, check him out. You could and will learn some stuff. Traindodge. I adore Traindodge. They are a unique band, I think. This is Time Will Never Know Your Name, their most recent album from several years back. I do believe they have a new one finished and on the way, which I'm really looking forward to. They are a band that produces incredibly melodic, heavy guitar music. It's sometimes astonishing just how catchy such heavy riffs can be. They're a great band. And this is one of the most unique records that I think I have, because depending on how you look at it, it's either pink or orange or both. And I don't really understand how that is achieved. I think I understand the basic principle of the optics and refraction of light and stuff, but like to look at it this way, oh, it's pretty orange. Oh, no, it's pink. It's orange and it's pink. But it matches, the motif of the art very well. It's really cool. I got a note from when they shipped that to me. All right, so my camera battery just died. I haven't even been going very long, which just kind of reminds me of why I sometimes don't do these for a while. And it's annoying. I do enjoy it. I enjoy it while I'm doing it. I'm talking about the music, and then I have to deal with all the mechanics of doing it. But anyway, had to reset everything. Hopefully it's the same. Let's just keep going. Traindodge. I'll leave a link. I've been trying to place a snippet of music at the end of the video. And you know what? I'll play one now. I'll just play like 10 seconds of something from this record. Something that might get across the vibe. And actually, when I showed this on Instagram recently, I did that. I put a song over it in the Instagram story, and somebody told me that they bought it based on my sharing it. So that's awesome. Because I'll probably at the end put a track from this too. This is Fleshwater, a fairly new band, and this album is called We're Not Here to Be Loved. And they are what I would describe as neo-grunge with shoegaze vocals. And then there's some stuff that you just kind of have to hear to make sense of it. But it's really cool. This is the Yellow in Clear version. This is actually, they're on their 4th pressing of this album in a pretty short period of time. This came out last year, so it seems like they're doing well. There's a printed lyric sheet, as well as a 2-sided poster, which was nice to see. Also comes with a download code. Love that. And it's a Bandcamp code, which is the best because you can download the waves. And often they are high resolution. So this comes with a 24-bit wave files to download, which is awesome. So like I said, it's the 4th pressing. There's been a bunch of colors, many of which I would have preferred, but they're already in second-hand market price ranges. Currently, there's black in clear, white in clear and this yellow in clear, which is a little bit harder to find, but I ordered it from Turntable Lab in New York, which I hadn't dealt with before previously, I don't believe in it, and that transaction went pretty well. So really enjoyed this. This was actually recommended to me on Instagram by someone who has watched my videos before, saw that I enjoyed Super Heaven, and thought that this would be up my alley, and that person was definitely correct. So check out Fleshwater. There's a music video out there. Really some throwback vibes, but with a very modern production. And I think they might be playing baritone guitars, because some of these riffs are really like thick and down-tuned and heavy. But there's also tons of like great melody. It's a cool listen. Played it twice on streaming before I was like, you know what, I'm gonna want this on vinyl. I better get it now, because I don't want to pay $50, $60 for it someday in the future. So I went ahead and did that. So next is this amazing album from a band called Facing New York, which I don't think very many people know of still, which is a shame. But I've known them for a long time because they were a band that I was on the road with for a bit back in those days, when I was a part of a traveling band as a tour manager mostly. And we did, a week or two with these guys way back in 2006. And they were so impressive. They were such great songwriters and performers. And we loved them. Great guys. And after that record, after that time, they were broken up essentially, at least going through changes, members leaving and whatnot. And they were a three-piece, and they managed to come out with this. It's called Get Hot. This was put out by In the Clouds Records, and it's kind of a matchstick package motif, complete with a strike strip there, which is pretty creative. Red vinyl. Not very many of these out there. And I think this has, over the years, actually gained some awareness, because the singer of this band has gone on to become a really prolific and successful songwriter with other artists, like Lizzo and people of that echelon. If he hasn't been a part of a Grammy-winning song or album, he's at least been nominated. So I think there's been some trickle down back to where he comes from, which is great, because more people should know who Facing New York is. And they're an alternative indie rock band with some intricate melodies, sometimes very creative lyrics, and they're just excellent musicians. And I was listening to this, I haven't listened to it in a while, I was like, oh damn, this is really good. Like, this is impressive, this is a fun listen, it sounds great. I think that, they did it on their own, but the production was just very well done. And like I was saying, somehow it's been found out, and this it's sold for $200 on Discogs before, and I think there's another one selling for $200. It's on sale for $200 right now. So I was like, oh geez, that's kind of ridiculous. Before that, it had only ever sold for, I don't know, 20, 30. And I think this is one that actually hung around long enough that it was part of In the Clouds sales. Like, nobody really knew about it. So it was great to listen to this again. Sounded great. They actually did put out another record just a few years ago. I think it was 2019. After more than a decade, that same trio got back together, put out another album called Dogtown, which is also great. So I wouldn't mind hearing some more from them if that happens. Okay, so as you can see, I've been listening to a lot lately, and I still have quite a few. I'd like to put it all in one video, although I don't want to overstay my welcome here. Yeah, we can do it. Let's just do it. And then at the end, I will share a recent gathering of in-person VC members. One of whom came all the way from New Zealand to Portland, and it was a great day. I'll talk about that at the end. Music on Vinyl has continued concluded their series of the Silverchair collection. This is Diorama from 2002. And somewhat surprising to me. I didn't know this was going to be the case. It has like this refractive color. Those streaks of rainbow are in the jacket, and depending on your view, they can move around. I don't know if that's showing up very well. But that is pretty neat. Obviously fits the album art. This one is on purple vinyl. Another excellent quality pressing, of course, from Record Industry, as all music on vinyl pressings are. Great pressing quality and sounds pretty good. I had a music on vinyl version of this years back that I just found to be pretty good. It was okay. But that there was either some part of the frequency range, I mean, that's all I could really think would be the cause, that some part of the frequency range in the mids was either compressed or notched out. Like, it just seemed like in the recording in my head, some part of it, the soundstage was missing, or at least, kind of covered up. And it sounds like this is the same cut, the same version. It still has the 2014 copyright on it, so I think it's just a repress. And I sold that old one because I got this white pressing from Australia, which was reissued a few years ago, and I found that to be sonically better. But this is a pretty damn cool presentation. So once again, I have double dipped on Silverchair thanks to Music on Vinyl. God damn you. I didn't pay the full price. I did manage to find it at somewhat of a discount. But yeah, the regular price is like $40. So if you don't have that album at all, it is available right now. There's only 3,000. Mine is actually numbered 2898, so almost the end of the run. That Australian reissue was only 1,000, and that's long gone, over $100 now. So, beautiful album. I mean, I feel like I've talked about it a lot over the years, but Silverchair, you may have heard that name, part of the grunge, post-Nirvana sound in the mid-90s. As they evolved, they became just so much more impressive and deeper. This album, probably their best, technically at least. Might be my favorite, although I love them all for various reasons. But there's, this orchestral elements arranged by Van Dyke Parks. Daniel's voice on this is just phenomenal. It's just a really epic album. And for them being, I think, 21 years old, it's just astonishing that they made it. So if you have never heard of Silverchair or this album, it is certainly recommended. It's pretty remarkable. Okay, I think we've gotten through kind of rock records. That's another Australian band that I took a chance on called Icehouse. It's their debut, kind of a synth pop new wave band. This was from 1981. I was intrigued by the cover, and it was $1. And I figured I could clean it up and check it out. Pretty good. Vibes, very much of the time, but enjoyable. I really love that period of, pop music. And apparently they are still together after all these years. So that's pretty great. Not bad for $1. This I bought for like $2, had no idea what it was. Just intrigued by it. I think I sampled it on the phone, like, oh, that's something. We'll check it out. Sue Garner and Rick Brown. The album's called Still. This is from 1999 on Thrill Jockey. I didn't know who these people were or what it was going to be about, and I wouldn't even really know how to describe it concisely. It seems like a bit of an experiment. It's kind of down-tempo. It's kind of electronic. It has some post-rock elements. Vocals show up from time to time, and they're actually quite nice. I was surprised by that. And they're actually a husband and wife duo. But I think them being so intimate with each other probably informs just how unique the sound is and how they produce something together from that intimacy. Like the kind of sound that probably two other people couldn't make. So it was really interesting, and I'm definitely going to keep it. So this was a cool find. probably know this. This is In Rainbows from Radiohead, 2007. But this is the deluxe double LP 45 RPM version, except if you are familiar with it, you may be noticing it's missing the second CD and the outer slipcase that this would have gone in, which is hard to fit on a shelf, so I actually don't miss it all that much. But because of those irregularities, and the vinyl was, smudgy, somebody obviously wasn't taking very good care of this. This was $40 at the record store, which is quite a steal for this version. On Discogs, it's certainly over 100, maybe upwards of 200, depending on the copy and condition and all that. So big discount, and I cleaned it up, and it ended up being great. So it does have the original album CD, just not the bonus tracks, which I believe I have digitally, so it doesn't really matter. The records turned out great. It's definitely the preferable version on vinyl, and I really enjoyed it. What a find. Okay, so we're almost done here. I do hope this isn't terribly long, but whatever, Somebody's going to show up to watch this. They're going to watch it. John Martyn, which a name I was familiar with from his relationship to Nick Drake from that early 70s period. This is from the early 80s, 1981, an album produced by Phil Collins, engineered by Nick Launay, who I know because he produced the last Silverchair album, Young Modern. And this was also from a dollar bin. And I was like, well, that's worth taking a chance on, I think. The first track, Couldn't Love You More, was actually pretty interesting, and I was intrigued. I thought, well, if it's this vibe, yeah, cool. Yeah, it's like a pop funk jam with a really cool bass line, and the vocal hook was good. So I was like, okay, let's see what else we got. And then it just kind of, nothing else really was as interesting to me. And the copy is, not great, a little beat up. So I'm actually not going to keep this. But I am going to look earlier in his catalog. I think this is like his 11th album or something like that. But I've been informed that there's some much more attractive stuff early in his catalog, so I will look into that. Did I say this was produced by Phil Collins? And he plays drums on it, which is pretty cool. So worth a shot for $1, but won't be holding on to that one. And speaking of Nick Drake, 5 Leaves Left. This is the reissue from 2012, 13. It came in a gatefold. And I did not have this reissue. I did buy it initially, and it was pressed at United, and it didn't sound that great. I think there was a mark across it. Just wasn't worth keeping, and I didn't try to get another one. I have looked into it several times since then, because I have a 70s Antilles pressing, which is great, but of the other 2 albums, I also have a reissue. Of Brighter Later, I have the reissue from this period. And I kind of wanted to have a reissue of this so I could have less wear and tear on the original, because this is an album I love and will play often in my life. So I saw this used at a local store, and it was $30, but it was an optimal pressing, which, as far as I could tell, would be preferable. And I took a chance on it. So I cleaned it up, I listened to it, and yeah, it's not as good as the original. It's not as good as the other reissues, Brighter Later and Pink Moon, were from this time, because this was only available as a digital rip of the master tape. So it does kind of feel like there's a dimension layer loss, but it's only slight, and it was still very enjoyable to listen to. And yeah, I'm glad I finally, because I've been looking for a way to get, I believe this is the EU pressing, and it's hard to tell when it's sealed, and I didn't necessarily need to go out of my way to buy it, but I found it and I got it. So at the same store at the same time, Also found an interesting reissue of Pink Moon, which I haven't listened to yet, so that'll probably be on the next one. Love Nick Drake. I hope I don't have to explain that music, but, you know, singer-songwriter, folk guitar, beautiful guitar player, lovely singer. All right, last one, George Cromarty. Actually, Cromarty. It actually has a note at the bottom of the jacket that says, pronounced Crom as in Cromwell, Erdy as in 30. The name is Scottish, so apologies. Okay, foiled again. My card was full this time. So we have reset once more. George Cromarty. This is Grassroots Guitar, his first album. I found him because I found Wind in the Heather from Windham Hill in I think the early 80s. This is from 1973, and I really enjoyed that. Beautiful guitar playing. And so I looked him up, didn't really know anything about him, found out about this one, and I ordered it on Discogs. Wind in the Heather, I think I bought for $2. This was more like 20, but it was the cheapest one I could find, and it's a promo. And yeah, more beautiful, impressive guitar playing. Many times it sounds like there are two guitars playing, but it also has the quality that you can tell it's actually one, which is very impressive. He passed away fairly young in the 90s, only put out this record and then Wind in the Heather. Between there's like it's essentially a children's album, which, you know, might be interesting. I don't think I'll be looking for that one. But brief but bright output. And I'm really glad I found this. I think actually some people have kind of compared his playing style to Nick Drake. And I guess they would have been making music around the same time. There's some interesting notes about where these songs came from and when they were recorded. This was put out on Thistle Records. It was great. Glad I found it. Glad I got it. Glad I found him. That's what I love about buying records, searching through records, is you find stuff now and again that's just like, I never would have known this any other way. I don't even think these are reissued. I don't think either of them have been reissued on CD or anything. I think if you find it on YouTube, it's actually a rip of the record. So pretty great. Love it. And actually, the last song, called Little Children, suddenly he's singing. At least, you know, there's no indication that it's anyone else singing. And he has a lovely voice. I really was pleasantly surprised by that. Everything else is instrumental. And I wish he would have done that more. I think he could have been like a great singer-songwriter. I wonder why not? Because I don't believe there was a vocal track on that other album, but I talked about it fairly recently, so unless I'm mistaken. Okay, so last week, James Buttery from New Zealand and Tom from High Rant District here on YouTube, we got together. James hit me up probably a month ago asking if I'd be around or interested in meeting up. And I have known his name. I knew his face. He's been in the VC making videos for something like 10 years, but somehow we haven't really been connected, which is surprising because, I mean, come to find out, we have very similar tastes and interests. And I wish I would have known of him more previously, but he knew me well enough to know that I lived here and asked me if I was interested in meeting up. And I said, well, sure. Yeah, why not? Tom was invited as well as Andreas, the Grecian Thunder, but he had to work, unfortunately. It'd be great to see him again. And I didn't know Tom at all. I'd never seen his channel, which is weird, you know, because why wouldn't YouTube have shown me that before? I find, even though I still watch VC videos, I don't see a lot of the people who aren't, the people that you're thinking of, probably. Tom is more of like an old school VC guy, which I wish I would have known of him before, again. But we got together, we met at Mississippi Records. We walked around, we each bought a few things, and then we went on to have lunch and a beer. And we talked for a while. We were having a great time, so we said, well, why don't we just move along down the road, go somewhere else, have another beer, another chat. And we did this we met at noon, and I think they left me about 7 o'clock. And we just had a great time. Great time talking about all kinds of stuff. Records, music, people in the VC that we love. Some people they were talking about that I didn't know. Politics, countries, differences in cultures and all that. They were both great to talk to, and I thought I was going to show up, show my face, say hi, maybe we'd get lunch, and then I'd go back to my day. I had no idea that we were going to hang out that long or have that great of a time, but it was cool. So I believe I have a few pictures, and I'll maybe put them here. It was great. James, thanks for inviting us and initiating that experience. It was a great day. I mean, I've met Andreas a couple times. I've met Henrik Derek Ellis, and I think that's it from the VC. But apparently Tom lives near one of my most frequented stores, so I may just hit him up again sometime. I am trying to not frequent record stores as much, at least for the summer. Compared to the last few years, these last few months, this last 6 months really, I kind of gone nuts on buying. So I am going to try to cut back. But anyway, how long is this video? Probably one of the longest ones I've done. But if I broke it up, I don't know when I would get around to another one. So here we go. I'll listen to a few more records and come back when I feel like talking about them. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. Take care and enjoy your music.